Hi there, and welcome to another live. It's 7 p.m. in the UK, and we're going to do our regular carnivore live stream. I'm just waiting for the UK's top nutritionist, keto pro, to arrive, and we should get on with that. And there's obviously a bit of news from Carnivore Muscle, and I will hopefully be able to put that on the screen in a second for you. So, how was your Sunday been? My Sunday's been really good. I've been thoroughly enjoying it, and I just can't wait to show you this. Let's just see if we can show you this. Yeah, let's have a look. Jonathan, Carnivore Muscle. There he is, and he's won his competition. We don't get what we wish for; we get what we work for. So there he is. Look at that, Jonathan, Carnivore Muscle, and doing his job there on stage. Worked hard for that. He's definitely worked hard for that, and looking very fit there. He won the competition, and if you're watching, Jonathan, I think that's brilliant. Sometimes you do watch, so that's great. Anyway, right, let's get him off the screen. I'm trying to get Richard onto the screen, but his camera doesn't seem to be working right now. So let's oh, he is now coming on. So yeah, let's get Richard. If we can, I'll get my cursor over here. And let's get Richard on. Right, Richard.
Good day.
Good day. Very loud. It's nice and clear. How are you?
Yes, all good. You?
Yeah, good. Are you actually on your microphone? You said you got it on your mic?
Oh, it should be. Is it not working through the mic?
Yeah, and I can hear you, but normally you're a bit more dulcet. And
Okay.
there's a lot of sort of sniffing sounds or some sort of sound coming on.
Background noise, unfortunately.
What is that background? Right.
There we are. That should be any better.
That's perfect. That's what we wanted, which is good. So we're 2 minutes in, and you missed me just sort of putting the picture of Jonathan up and saying that he's won his competition, getting what he worked for, not what he wished for. So there he is.
Exactly. Looking absolutely incredible. Yeah, fantastic result.
Yeah.
Fantastic
yes.
Result.
So normally as well, you like to zoom your thing in. That's it. That's better.
There we are.
Beautiful. That's good. What a fantastic day today. It's been sunny, warm, and amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, too sunny and too warm. I'm only
typical
joking.
Brit.
Typical
Brit. We moan about the weather, and then when it's good, right?
It's been fantastic, absolutely incredible. Yeah, more of this weather we need. I think more sun means more happy people. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, one of the things that's upset me. Well, two things actually. I'm going to just talk about this, which I think is really interesting. If you want to have a group with an ism on the end, let's say like communism or veganism, the way to get that group stronger is to demonize the opposition. That's the thing. So we don't do that. Carnivores don't tend to demonize vegans. We just feel sorry for them for being misinformed. And they demonize carnivores. And at the Paris Olympics, apparently, they've got this new phrase, leaf over beef, and they're banning beef. So, not only do they demonize that way of eating, but they also ostracize and censor and tell you what you should be eating, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I just want people to know that we're not going to be demonizing people. We're not going to go down to their sort of tactics. But that's why their tactics are so strong, is because they do demonize us. And one thing I've been working on is just comments like a vegan the other day put on the picture of on Twitter or X, a picture of their plate. This is guilt-free. I can eat this guilt-free without any tears, without any cruelty. And I just put, well, yeah, it's guilt-free because you're deluded about the fact that all of this food has death behind it, and pesticides and stuff like that. And there is a company or an organization called, let me just get it up, the Environmental Working Group, which is actually pro-plant. It's actually a pro-plant based thing. And they have come up with a dirty dozen. And they were looking at fruits and veg, which have traces of pesticides. So one pesticide is going to kill pests, suicide, homicide, pesticide. You're killing pests, which are butterflies and bugs and microbes. Okay, so this environmental working group has come up with the fact that strawberries contain as many as 45 pesticide residues. So for that person, if they had strawberries on their plate, there was 45 different ways to kill animals. So celery had 64 pesticide residues. So there were 64 ways. I'm not demonizing. I'm just giving you some facts to kill animals. On cucumbers, there was 86 pesticides. 86 pesticide residues, different pesticides. So that's how many different chemicals we use to kill animals. All right. And I could go on. Spinach, 54. Bell peppers, 53. And that's what we're dealing with. And also at the Olympics, the Paris Olympics, they're saying, well, it's for the environment. Well, it's not good for the environment because the same group said that 55% of fruit and veg are flown in from other countries. 55% of fresh fruit sold in the United States come from overseas. Well, that's not good for the planet. So that's my little precursor to not demonizing, but just putting some facts out there. But Paris, you're getting it all wrong. You shouldn't be doing that because you're just promoting pesticides. You're promoting flights for all these different fruits and veg. And also you are ignoring the facts about nutrition. So here we go. Let's get into Meat-tastic. Unless you want to comment on that, Richard. Sorry.
No, I completely agree. It's and it goes well beyond what damage it causes to animals. It's the damage it causes to us also. These pesticides, such as glyphosate, are known inhibitors of the shikimate pathway. The shikimate pathway is a pathway within the body that allows us to create 95% of the neurotransmitters that we need. By consuming these compounds, it blocks our body's ability to create these neurotransmitters effectively and efficiently, therefore leading to things like depression, anxiety, amongst other things, other mental health issues, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. But one of the research papers I was reading recently stated that vegans have a much higher percentage of depression because of their inability to create neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters allow us to feel happy, feel sad, and if we are consuming the correct nutrition, we have the ability to create these neurotransmitters and not feel so depressed and anxious. And this is coming from a person who used to suffer severely with anxiety and depression. As you know, my life was spent living in boxes. I suffered severely with anxiety and depression. And I was eating lots of food that was treated with these toxic chemicals, amongst other things. I was also consuming lots of vegetable oils and carbohydrates, which isn't going to help. And again, I'm not demonizing carbohydrate. In fact, that leads on to another topic that I'd like to cover tonight if we do have time. It's a question somebody asked me on Instagram in regards to vegetables and fiber. And I think that'll be an interesting talking point if we have time to cover that.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about one of the shorts that you've just done, which is about the blue zones. But we've got a question, but we will come back to that because, like I say, I like to answer the questions, but I haven't premised the beginning of this very well because I was worried about your camera not working originally or something not working. But anyway, right. If you've got a question, put a question in the live chat and we'll try and answer it. If you are not answered straight away, that's because we give full answers to questions. If you want to jump the queue, then you can use a super chat, which is us being evil and greedy and wanting to profit from your £1.99 or whatever it is. So you can do a super chat and it will push your question up. That's it really. So we got some questions already. Meat-tastic, which I always want to say in a sort of smashy and nicey way. The old Harry Enfield, Paul Whitehouse used to do smashy and nicey. Hey, mate, we do a lot of work for charity. It's meat-tastic, mate. Anyway, here's the question. I've bored Richard already. Evening, gents. My friend has been told her gallbladder needs to come out due to high number of polyps. She had some pain, hence the diagnosis. She's not keto or carnivore, but would it help?
Would it? Yeah, I mean, for sure. A lot of these things are inflammatory based. And the beauty of becoming ketogenic and carnivore is the body's ability to block lots of inflammation. The body, when it produces ketones in the form of beta hydroxybutyrate, this blocks NLRP3 inflammasome. I believe that a ketogenic, or in fact, let's take away all of these words: ketogenic and carnivore, low carb, etc. Let's look at it from an inflammatory state. We want to be in a low inflammatory state. An inflammatory response is a response to something that is, it could be through training, which is caused on purpose, but more often than not, it's to do with damage from something that we've consumed or an environmental impact. We don't want it to be inflamed continuously. This constant state of being inflamed causes lots of issues. Keto carnivore is a low inflammatory lifestyle. We've removed lots of the compounds that have caused these issues, but the added bonus is the ketones do block NLRP3 inflammasome. Amongst other things, I mean, fiber, which is the other one that we were going to come on to. Fiber is an anti-nutrient and it causes damage to, the body when we consume it. So for me, I think that being ketogenic and carnivore is always going to help. Whether it's going to reverse things, and this is a totally other, different question. Somebody asked me recently, would carnivore reverse arthritis, for example? And it's we see people who have reversed or seemingly reversed arthritic pains. The question there is, do they have arthritis in the first place? Quite often, the compounds we consume in the form of oxalates will give that impression because of the oxalate that builds up in the joints. So we see some people who seem to reverse these conditions, but I believe that we can stop these things dead in its track and certainly improve the body's chances on healing and repairing. For me, this is the way forward. I think the complete elimination diet in regards to the carnivore is going to confer a benefit in all circumstances. Whether it's going to reverse this. I mean, we've worked with clients previously, Steve, who have had, and I don't want to say the word just in case it leads us to being banned, but the C word. You and I have both worked with clients who have had C, and no longer suffer with that after trying chemo and it failing. So I mean, was it the diet? Was it the lifestyle? Who knows? But it certainly didn't hinder, and it was responsive in a situation in which other things were not. And we see this across the board. It isn't just for weight loss. This is for health and well-being, mental clarity, blocking inflammation, improving insulin resistance, and so on and so forth. And insulin resistance and inflammation are the two main driving factors of almost every illness and disease that we know of. And if we can be in a state of high insulin sensitivity and low inflammation, then we cause way less oxidative stress, and we have the ability to heal and repair and fight off. The body is an incredible machine. It wants to heal and repair. And what we do is we supply it with lack of the correct nutrients in order to do so. And once we remove those anti-nutrients, and then we begin to feed the body with the nutrients that it needs, when we give it the tools that it requires to carry out the work, that said work takes place. And for me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah. And I'm going to add a little bit of very basic layman sort of explanation as well. Your gallbladder stores bile, and bile is secreted normally in the presence of fats in your diet, and it squeezes, it contracts, it's a muscle, and it pumps out bile, which is its job. Now imagine you've got all this bile and it's got nothing to squeeze onto because you're not eating any fat. That is a recipe for disaster. That's going to turn into sludge, or it's going to turn into a stone, because you're not contracting the muscle. You're not releasing the bile, which is there to emulsify fats, which you need to eat. So there you go. I think it's really basic. Now I'm really looking forward to the next answer. So there's two questions coming up, and I think Andrew's got a question about apple cider vinegar, and I'll answer the one after this. I'll put my two penneth in after I've heard Richard, but I will definitely get something up on the screen for Adam's question about amino acids being converted to glucose, because we're gonna absolutely nail that one, put a nail in the coffin on that. But let's do the first one. Let's do this. Richard, any thoughts on apple cider vinegar?
Andrew, great to hear from you, my man. Andrew's been a fantastic supporter of mine since the early days. And he is also a member of our Skool Group, which is a private group, which is free to join, by the way. Stephen and I go live in there every Monday at 5 p.m, although tomorrow I may be a little bit later due to a meeting. But it's free to join, and it's an ideal way to ask any questions. We'll pop the link for that below. Apple cider vinegar, look, it's one of those things that I think is, I sell it. I think it can help the gut. I think it can speed up fat loss, very small. I believe it can allow the body to work more efficiently. Do we need it? I don't use it, and I sell it. So, I mean, this isn't a sales pitch by any means. When we look at these compounds, I look at anything that comes from a plant, I look as medication. If I hadn't taken medication at some points in my life, then I'd be dead, no question. If you're ill, I believe that medication can confer a benefit. If you were coming from a state of high insulin resistance, inflammation, the addition of apple cider vinegar may help initially. But Andrew, I know, is a long-standing carnivore. I don't think it's going to confer a benefit for you. I think somebody new to the lifestyle, it can help, especially when it comes to flavoring meals also. It's a fantastic way to, because people think that the ketogenic lifestyle is incredibly boring and restrictive, and it isn't. If we look at what people eat on an average day from a standard lifestyle, when you ask them what they consume on an average Monday, they'll give you a list. And then if you ask the same question for a Tuesday, it's the same stuff. We're creatures of habit. When we go shopping, we go to the same shopping aisles, we buy the same stuff. We may pick up one or two different Mr. Kipling cakes or whatever. But we are creatures of habit. We eat the same food on the same day. And all we are doing when we become ketogenic is just changing that from non-foods to real foods, ultimately. And then that opens up the question of fruits and veg and so on and so forth. But that's a question for another day. But for you, Andrew, I don't think that the apple cider vinegar is going to perform any benefit. I don't think it's going to hinder things either. If you feel you need it on your food, that's fine. I don't consume it. I think it's more of a benefit for someone who is new to the low-carb ketogenic lifestyle. I'm certainly not against it, but for you, I don't think it's going to help unless it's for flavoring purposes.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. I think it's just for new people that have had a low-fat, low stomach acid type of diet. I think it is a really good bridge to help. And we can't ignore anecdotes. Many people think it's great for them. So it could be placebo. But do you know what? If it's placebo, I don't care. If it works, it works. But I'm 100%.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on, Rich.
No, sorry. You just spurred something else there. It is. You are completely right, because when we look at all of these supplements on the market, and people say, like, turmeric. I've taken turmeric for years. It helps with joint pain. If you are highly, inflamed, then that can help lower inflammation, but it's not an antioxidant, and it is only causing more damage. It may confer a benefit in the short term, but if you continue to take turmeric is very high in oxalate. Oxalates will bind to the calcium, it'll build up in the joints, and it will only further exacerbate arthritic pains and joint pain. So again, all of these, and that's just one supplement. All of these supplements that will say, oh, this does this and this does, it does in the short term, but we wouldn't take medication in a long term. And I think that is an important fact to remember. In the short term, these things may confer a benefit, but long term, I don't believe that and apple cider vinegar is way lower on the spectrum or the scale of things that are going to cause problems as well. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to cause any issues, but I agree with you completely. It's something that we can take initially, but you and I and someone who is a stricter carnivore, we don't need it. It's not going to help us progress any further.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, it might be as simple as the fact they're low stomach acid when they come to this way of eating from the calorie restriction, low fat. vegan, vegetarian lifestyle, means their stomach acid is down. So you've got this little bit of acid going into the system, and it's killing pathogens, it's killing bacteria. And I think it could be just that simple. Right. This is the question, and I'm going to do a screen share, which is going to answer the question, and we're going to nail this one categorically. I don't think Rich has ever seen me present this. I think I presented it on here when he couldn't turn up, but let's do it. So Adam is saying, recently listened to a carnivore, in inverted commas, doc, mentioning the high protein resulting in amino acids being converted to glucose. I've heard numerous other carnivore docs state this is not the case. Thoughts? Right. Okay. So I'm going to take your question off the screen so we can see the screen share. This is something I give out as a PDF if you want it. Dietary protein does not increase blood sugar. There is a special dispensation for if you're type 1 diabetic. I'm going to cut straight to the graphs actually, and just explain the graphs for you, which is that doctors used to think that if you had let's say 120 grams of protein, or 132 grams of protein, at least 66 grams of it would turn into blood sugar. That's what they used to think. That's why these graphs are calibrated the way they are. So, for instance, if you have 80 grams of glucose given to you, what happens to your blood sugar? Well, it goes up. So, because they think that half of it's going to become blood glucose if you have protein, they gave this person 182 grams of lean beef or 332 grams of egg white. They really, really did put it up to sort of 160, so double the amount of protein, because they're using 80 grams of glucose. What happened to the blood sugar? Absolutely nothing. It just pretty much flatlined. All right. So that was the first thing. So then what they did is they looked at it after a certain amount of time. Exactly the same thing. You've got the spike, and the blood sugar from lean beef was a flat line. So this is quite in depth, but let's go a little bit further. This is with 53 grams of glucose. This is what happened to the blood sugar. Up it went. So they were given pure glucose, 53 grams of it. And then they were given some bread and butter, and that pushed the blood glucose up, but not as much. Then they were given an apple. That pushed the blood glucose up. And then they were given some beef. And look what happened. It's right down here on the flat line. Number 4, beef. There you go. Didn't do anything. No spike. No spike. But this gets even better. So I'm going to get to another thing, which is called, believe it or not, it's actually on the American Diabetes Association website. And they did a thing called doubly labeled, which is they label the nitrogen and the carbon in hen's eggs. They actually labeled the amino acids so they could see what it did to the body. Sorry to whiz through this. And they did what's called interval testing. And this is the blood glucose. And this is how much of the blood glucose was the amino acid from the doubly labeled amino acids in the eggs. So there was a tiny amount of the blood glucose came from the amino acids. And actually, once you factor in sort of the problems with the study and categorizing all this, I mean, it's near enough to zero, to be honest. So they've studied it. And it doesn't pan out. It doesn't pan out at all, really. Now, I mentioned type 1 diabetics, and that's because there is a little bit of play here due to glucagon, actually, rather than insulin. So when you eat a lot of protein, what happens? Well, your body needs 5 times the amount of energy to digest the protein compared to carbohydrates. 5 times the amount of energy. So actually what happens is your body is saying, we need some more blood glucose to provide the energy to digest the protein. So it releases some glucagon and it puts your blood glucose up a little bit. So that's what people see. They don't see the protein becoming blood glucose. What they actually see is your body processing the protein and needing 5 times the amount of energy to process it. So your body's really smart and puts some blood glucose into the system to be able to produce enough energy to process it, It's really that simple. It's been studied time and time again. And protein, amino acids do not become blood sugar. They certainly don't directly do that. And if it does happen, it's the body being smart and it's glucagon doing it. So that's my thoughts. If there are people saying that that happens, they have no proof of that. They really have no proof of that whatsoever. Happy for you to dive in if you want, Rich, or we can go on to the next question. Up to you.
Yeah, awesome. It's the insulin to glucagon ratio. This is what people look at when it comes to seeing an increase in blood glucose. But let's take a step back. Blood glucose isn't the enemy, and neither is insulin. These are things that happen within the body that are essential for life. It's the overexpression of these things. When we consume protein, leucine and alanine, for example, will elicit a small response in order to drive amino acids into cells. But that doesn't directly affect what we perceive to be a massive increase in blood glucose. And it comes from studies that are done on carb people. So when we look at the insulin to glucagon ratio, when we consume excess protein, the insulin to glucagon ratio increases by something like 2,000%, which is a massive amount. If that translated into a ketogenic or carnivore lifestyle, then yes, that would be something to worry about. But when we perform the same test on someone who's not consuming carbohydrate, that insulin to glucagon ratio alters by as much as 5 to 6% at the most, not 2,000%, which as a whole number remains unchanged. That insulin to glucagon ratio remains the same. It remains unchanged. That tiny, small elicitation is what the body requires in order to send the amino acids and nutrients into the cells in order to perform their work. We need glycoproteins to bind to cells in order to signal the body. The body makes all of the glucose that we need, and it does so through that process, gluconeogenesis, but this is demand-driven. It isn't driven by excess protein consumption. And if we remove the carbohydrate, then blood glucose, as you just illustrated, remains almost unchanged, if not completely unchanged. Protein is not the problem. It comes back to exogenous carbohydrate always. That ratio remains unchanged. Protein is essential for life. It should be prioritized in every meal. We cannot live without it. Every cell in the body is made of protein. Every cell in the body is made of fat. We should not be avoiding protein. This rubbish in regards to excess protein leading to insulin resistance and leading to someone being diabetic. I'm carnivore. I used to be diabetic. I've reversed that by eating nothing but meat. It's like, what? And every client I've worked with, what more do you want? Oh, but this study shows this. Well, what about me? What about all of these thousands of clients that I've worked with and you have worked with who have reversed their diabetes? We see this improvement in insulin sensitivity almost overnight when we remove carbohydrates and, more importantly, the seed oils. And we can get more into that as we go on, if you like. But protein is not the problem. Do not neglect your protein. Protein should always be prioritized. And fat is very important. But fat in nature comes with protein. If you prioritize your protein, you will always be consuming adequate fat in order for your body to perform everything that it needs in regards to healing, repairing, and so on and so forth. Prioritize your protein. Do not neglect your protein.
Excellent. I thought you'd have a word on that. Right. Here we go. Here's the next one, I think. No, that's not that. That's one we've just done. This is the one for you here. Or both of us, actually. It's Casper. I actually just put a question in for Casper. He's put, my HbA1c is creeping up on carnivore, up now to 6.5 millimoles per litre. Problem? ? I know about the red blood cells live longer theory. Just think 6.5 is high. Well, the red blood cells living longer theory isn't a theory. That's a fact, and you can actually test that with a reticulocyte count, and so that could put your mind at rest. If you think 6.5 is high, you've got to remember that is arbitrary and it's based on a calculation. If your fasted blood glucose, your fasted insulin, your C-peptide, which is a great proxy marker for the production of insulin, is all good. If you're using continual glucose monitor, I know that isn't from the blood, it's the interstitial tissue. That can be a good marker of a proper average. Nothing beats the finger prick, because that is your blood and your blood glucose. And if that's looking good, then it shows to me that the HbA1c may be misleading. It really is that simple. Now, if you are eating things that are not carnivore, and they definitely aren't carnivore, which is fruit or honey, then you will have some glycation going on, which might be more than you was expecting. And also you've got some, although when it's not measured in the HbA1c, contrary to popular belief, you have a problem with the fructose as well, which can have a knock-on effect, glycation. But that's a bit too technical to get into. So anyway, I would say have a look at what you're eating. Also, when you have your blood measured, can be misleading. If you have it first thing in the morning, you will get a different reading to midday. How long did you fast when you had your blood drawn? So there's loads of things. What lab did you go to? How hydrated are you? Your viscosity of your blood can have a big effect on it as well. Were you dehydrated? What were the other marks? So I think there's a lot with the HbA1c, but like I say, the biggest thing is to look at is your actual blood glucose levels on an average daily basis from a CGM or from a finger prick. And I think that's the ones I would go with. Happy for Rich to add a bit to that as well.
Yeah, spot on. You are the bloods expert. Completely agree. And again, if you are following a carnivore animal-based lifestyle and following some, I could be careful what I say, some idiots on YouTube who are telling you to consume lots of fruit,
Yeah.
then, as you say, this is going to increase your HbA1c. Yeah, that's probably a talk for another day, but it's we don't want to be consuming that level. I'm not saying fruit is bad in small amounts, but excessive amounts on an animal-based lifestyle, unless you are incredibly active, is going to be detrimental and will only lead to tears years down the line.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's good. I think I missed Rick's question. I do apologize, Rick. Let's go to this one, which is, what is your view on fermenting veggies like sauerkraut or the like? A friend of mine seems to do well with meat and sauerkraut.
I'm not against them. I don't think you need them. If you are going to eat veggies, then fermented is probably best. But do you like them? If you like them, fantastic. If you don't, then you don't need them. You simply don't need it. But I'm certainly not against it. I know many who live a carnivore lifestyle who will implement fermented veggies, and they work very well for them. I don't believe that it's conferring a benefit. Get that in there again. That's got to be shot number 4 today, Steve, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. But look, I don't think we need it. In fact, I wholeheartedly believe we do not need it. But if you are going to eat veggies, then that's one of the best ways to consume them.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those weird things, because it sort of proves that there's anti-nutrients in there, because one of the benefits of fermenting is it breaks down anti-nutrients in the veg, and it also makes anything in there more bioavailable. So I think it sort of shoots itself in the foot, because you're saying, well, I don't do well with veg, but I do well with fermented veg. Well, yeah, that's because you're killing all the bad things a little bit before you eat it. To me, that would be a big clue. But I absolutely agree with what Rick is saying there. If his friend is doing well or seems to do well, then, don't try and fix what isn't broken. I would say, though, to that friend, why don't you try 90 days without the fermented veg and see if you feel even better? Simple as that.
I agree. And look, it's a case of, somebody commented on Instagram recently, and I'm tired of negative comments on Instagram. You and I put information out there based on I think people forget that I used to be clinically obese and type 2 diabetic and suffered with chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, arthritic pains. I could not walk up the stairs without stopping or being severely out of breath in my mid to late 20s. And now I'm fitter and healthier than I've ever been through living this lifestyle. I went on to become British and European champion at a pro level. And now I'm doing fairly well in endurance sports, which I've never done in my life before. The proof is in the pudding. You and I are in pursuit of optimal health. We look at all of the research. We come up with, the results from our lifestyle, from everyone else's lifestyle that we speak with. And I'm not against carbs. I'm not against vegetables. If anything was going to help me in my pursuit for optimal health, then I would certainly consider it. And I've said this a number of times. If somebody told me that spinning around 3 times and touching the floor before running a race was scientifically proven to help me run faster for whatever reason, I'd be doing that before every race. So I'm open to suggestion. I'm not wedded to a keto lifestyle. In fact, if I were to tell people that living keto or carnivore long term was detrimental to your health, but living it for 3 to 6 month spells is going to massively improve your health and well-being, that is a far easier sell. But I don't believe that. I don't believe it because that's not my experience from all the people that I've worked with. It's not my experience personally, and it's not your experience. When you put information out on Instagram and people say, where's the references? It's not up to me to show you the references. I've done my research. I'm giving you that information. You go off and look for that research and come up with your own conclusion. If your conclusion doesn't match mine, that's fine. I'm not telling you you have to live my lifestyle. This is the information that I'm putting out. You go off and you look for that research. It's not up to me to give you. I've spent hundreds of thousands of hours of researching. Why should I just hand that over to you? I'm there giving the results for free. You and I, Steve, do this for free. We hand out this information for free. There's the start of that conversation. You go off and find the rest. And it's just drags me down when people just negatively comment on these things and want you to. Where's the proof? Well, I'm the fucking proof. I'm the proof. Everyone I work with is the proof. Somebody put a comment on recently. I eat vegetables every day and I'm healthy. I'm not saying you can't be healthy by eating vegetables, but it's all about these levers and these incremental changes. Yes, you run a fast 5K. Could it be faster? That person's been running longer than I have. I'm running considerably faster. And so on and so forth. You're there, you're fit and healthy. How many other levers are there to pull? Yes, you're fit and healthy. Could you be healthier is the question. I don't know. That's up for you to decide. But the information we put out is for you to divulge. Go away, do your own research. I'm not there to list every little paper that I have spent hundreds or thousands of hours studying. This is why I am qualified, and I am qualified as a nutritionist. You were qualified in everything that you do as well, Steve, qualified phlebotomist, and in regards to diabetes and blood works and so on and so forth. Go off and do your own research as well. We are the catalyst to that. There's the information. Just stop commenting negatively because it just depresses me so much. It's like the information is free. Do with it as you like. Just stop negative comments. It's But there we are. There's my rant.
Yeah, well, I've got an honours degree in physiology and health sciences, but I had a comment saying that's worthless. Yeah, 3.5 years of study, completely worthless. Absolutely. And it makes me laugh what you say about the references because WHO, who are well known to not really like meat eaters, I now just give out their PDF with all the anti-nutrients in food. There's not one animal protein on there. There's not one animal product. It's all plants. And people don't like it because I just say, do you know what? There is all the other research, but here's a list from the WHO of anti-nutrients. It's all plants. It's a fact. There you go. Rick's just put a subsidiary thing on there, which is really interesting. I don't want to spend too much time on Rick's friend here, but my friend already tried 2 months regular carnivore, but was suffering headaches and some difficulty using the toilet. The sauerkraut fixed that, and that is great. I would say 2 months is still a bit early, but what I would say is do the sauerkraut meat way of eating. So he's healing his gut a bit more, getting a bit more resilient, a bit more robust, and maybe come back to full carnivore, I don't know, 6 months time and see if you can do without the fermented stuff. But this is where we live. Both Rich and I, we live in a world of real people with real results. I've got a guy who is in one of my success stories. He had stomach surgery and then went off to eat meat and some fruit and veg. And then he decided to eat meat and just veg. And he was literally within a day and a half of dying. That's what he was told. And he decided to ignore all the advice. And if he was going to die, he was going to go out in a blaze of glory and he was going to eat lots of meat. because he had kidney problems. That was basically what was happening. And he went to Italy and he had meat out there, and he's so fit and healthy, you wouldn't believe it. But he only did that because he genuinely was told and thought it was true that he was going to die. And rather than die a horrible, miserable death, he decided to go out in a blaze of glory, eating all the wonderful things in a wonderful country. And it was actually the life-changing experience that you'd imagine. So anyway, right. That's great, Rick. One of my favorite people, actually.
Yeah,
sorry.
Can I just jump in really quickly there? Look, it's when you make changes. We've spent an entire lifetime eating a certain way, causing damage. 2 months of change is not going to be enough in most people in order to undo all of that damage. Toilet troubles is incredibly common because of bile production. As you say, bile production isn't it's not used to being produced because of the lack of fat. And when it is, it loses, or it's lost its ability to be reabsorbed in the small intestine. And quite early on in the journey, it leads to toilet problems. This drop in insulin, again, leads to a loss of electrolytes, particularly sodium. So it is possible that the veggies, the sauerkraut is replacing these electrolytes also. So again, I'm not against anything that works, but it is incremental changes. And this is why I tend to coach people towards carnivore through incremental changes, gravitating slowly. I do believe if your friend Rick removed that now, that they would feel way, way better. But look, it was fit for purpose, and it achieved, the results, the desired results, and it's worked. So that's fantastic. And again, we are not, I work with vegans, I work with vegetarians, I'll work with anyone who is willing to make a difference. All we can do is supply that information and guide that person, along their journey. What that person decides to do with that information is up to them. But that's what Stephen and I do. We put this information out there so you can make an educated decision. Whether you believe it or not, it'll spark that thought process in order for you to go away, do a bit of research, and either come to the conclusion that what we're talking is utter rubbish, or, there may be something in this. But yeah, that's my 2 penneth. Are you still muted, Steve?
I am muted. Sorry about that. Oh, by the way, I caught the sun today. I'm quite pleased with how
Me too, look.
Yeah, yes.
But you look way better than I do.
I think someone's commented on how healthy we look, which is really good. Steve 03 done keto for 6 weeks, lost around 20 pounds. Congratulations, but I had to stop due to constipation. Now, I would just pick up on the word constipation and say, was it constipation, or was you just going to the toilet less? Because that can be. Now, I'm not saying Steve 03 that you don't know what constipation is, but I am making this broad for people because this is something that comes up a lot. They think constipation is, they used to go 3 times a day, and then they started to go once every other day. This way of eating, you produce a lot less waste. So constipation is more to do with pain, straining to actually go. Bloated. It's not about frequency. Okay. And so you might have had the constipation in your mind, but it is actually that you're just going less. Now, if it was for other reasons, when you go keto, obviously, well, I'm going to hand over to Rich, because we're going to talk about electrolytes when it comes to constipation and adapting to keto.
Yeah. So look, there are lots of things. Some people suffer with, and again, I think you've hit the nail right on the head, Steve. If you're used to going 2 or 3 times a day and suddenly you're not going every day, it doesn't mean that you're constipated, unless, you may be bloated, and then that's a different issue. But if you're not bloated, what happens when you consume more animal proteins is the body will absorb more of those nutrients, because fiber is an anti-nutrient. Vegetables are an anti-nutrient. A lot of these things that we consume speed up that process. What happens when you go to McDonald's? Within 20 minutes, you're on the toilet. We don't want that. We want slow transit time. We want plenty of time for these nutrients to be absorbed. That's one thing. The other side, flip side of the coin, is what we just mentioned about, diarrhea, and so the opposite end. Is it constipation, Steve? That's the first question that I would put out to that. But again, we could navigate that by consuming more fats. that will help lubricate the passage, and again with the bile production, allow us to go more frequently should you wish to do so. Just speak to anybody that takes lots of MCT oil, for example, or drinks lots of double cream. You'll soon be on the loo, especially if you consume it with coffee. But there's a lot more to go into this. I think we don't have enough information to come to a proper conclusion. But Steve, if you want to join our private group, which is free to join, Steve will pop a link in later. We go live at 5 p.m. tomorrow in our Skool Group. It's a Zoom type situation, so you can ask a question and we can bounce things back and forth. We can really get into the weeds with this. But there's so much to take into account.
Yeah. Susan Lewis, glyphosate killed my husband. He used it so often that it caused him to get cancer. And that's not tinfoil hat stuff. That's real. There's definitely links between glyphosate and cancer. Sorry to hear that, Susan. One of our favourite people, a regular. So that's good. Right, I will get that link. But let's put this question up. Mojo Curio. I've recently discovered Morley Robbins and his research on copper. What is Richard's expert opinion on copper? Many thanks. And if you've not come across Morley Robbins, it's someone I think you would find very interesting. But it's not asking what you think of Morley Robbins, it's what you think of copper.
Yep. Look, all of these things are essential. I think many things have been demonized over the years. Copper, iron, vitamin A. These things are not always in the form that we think. Like copper isn't copper, iron isn't iron, vitamin A isn't always vitamin A. Where they come from is really important, and I think that many of these compounds have been demonized. I think copper is essential. I think it's been demonized for many years. Again, I think excessive amounts of anything is going to be bad for you. But this is why we need to eat as nature intended. And I think if we go back to eating the way that we've evolved to eat, eating lots of animal proteins, eating within the ratios that we are meant to eat, any copper consumed within that sort of compound is only going to confer that benefit. So I think it's been demonized, as well as many other things.
Yeah, and I think, do you know Morley Robbins, by the way?
I don't follow many people, as you know. I don't. You mention these people, and I'm like, yeah, okay, but I don't. But go on.
He's fascinating, and he does the root cause protocol, which is an interesting thing, and he's very interested in the balance between iron stores. I mean, this is not what the question is, but I'm just saying if people are interested, it's very different the way he thinks. I like the way he thinks. He talks about magnesium deficiency having an issue within the copper balance, adrenal fatigue. He also believes in vitamin C supplementation. So he's a very interesting person. I like the way he talks, actually. Right.
So vitamin C supplementation, I'm not a fan of that again. See, so I mean, this is where within our community, there's lots of variance in difference in opinion. I do think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the circumstance. And I do believe that certain compounds can confer a benefit in the short term, but it doesn't mean that you should, continue to take these after. I'm not a massive lover of vitamin C supplementation, though, but I mean, we can get into that again.
Yeah, absolutely. But I like to broaden it out just for people. Again, this is a supplement question. What are your thoughts on supplementing essential amino acids? How much and when would be most beneficial?
We don't need them. Essential amino acids. I mean, it's if we look at a standard keto carnivore lifestyle, we consume plenty of amino acids within our diet. We don't need to supplement with these compounds. If you are going to supplement with any amino acid, it would be leucine. And only if, you are an avid training person, an athlete, someone who trains in the gym or athletic performance. And the best time to supplement with that would be just before eating your meal. Leucine is a potent mTOR activator. Around 3 grams is going to activate mTOR to the max capacity and allow you to heal and repair and build the body. And that's not saying I'm against essential amino acids from supplementation form. But if your diet is adequate, if you were consuming around 1 gram per pound of protein per day, then you were going to be consuming way more than you need to. What is more important is what you consume that protein with. This is why we need to consume protein with fat. fat allows us to absorb these amino acids efficiently, and the co-consumption of protein with fat has been shown to increase muscle protein synthesis, so on and so forth. I don't supplement with any amino acids anymore. Again, if you are deficient, then, or you're not a meat eater, for example, then there is an argument to supplement. If you're a vegan, for example, you would need to supplement with cobalamin, vitamin B12, iron, and maybe some other essential amino acids. But if you were living a ketogenic carnivore lifestyle where you're consuming around a gram per pound, and even as low as 0.5 per pound is probably going to be enough to enable your body to heal and repair and carry out all of the work that it needs, then I don't believe you need it. But if you are going to supplement, leucine is the main one to go to for me. There is leucine.
That's great. Ribeye Rob, thanks for the super chat. Massive shout out to Jonathan Griffiths for winning his bodybuilding competition today.
Yep, incredible.
I don't know if you saw that I put his picture up, Rich, but anyway, I started with his picture. Right, Rose Bailey, question. I've been strict carnivore since 1st of January and lion since April the 1st. Still have Gerd off and on. Any suggestions? Should I keep trying lion to heal the gut? I'm going to go yes.
Yeah. Look, you could try supplementing with some zinc also. Look, we need to reset. And I think that, you can do it incrementally. If you wanted, this needs to be sustainable. So if you wanted to increment things slowly, but we need to be careful we're not over consuming too many lectins, which if you gravitated back towards a keto lifestyle, things like tomatoes, bell peppers, cauliflower, and many other compounds are going to contain lectins, which is only going to further fuel any good. Just stay carnivore, keep persevering, supplement with some zinc if you need to. I think that the continuation will eventually power through, and we'll see a positive result.
Yeah. Now, we can always tell that Matthew's in the house because he always asks questions about latest fads and things to do with training. I know he's studying at the moment. I wonder if our opinions are getting into his assessments. I wonder. But anyway, right. Matthew, what are your thoughts on the latest fitness trend of doing lengthened partials? It is an exercise fad to sell. Is it an exercise fad to sell new programs? I don't think it is. If you want to know what that is, here is a bicep curl and here is a lengthened muscle. And what you do is, instead of going all the way up, you do your reps as a partial rep when your muscle is fully stretched. So that's the name, lengthened partials. So it's that constant tension out here. Now, it's good. It's just a different thing. It's a bit like doing a squat and then doing slightly different foot position, or putting a box on the floor and doing a squat slightly different to ensure that you go deep. I just think it's another way of ensuring that you do something. Partial reps, there's nothing different about partial reps. And to be honest, it's something that, the X3, for instance, definitely talks about, but doesn't call it lengthened partials, because if you have the resistance band and you go down, the whole idea is to do a full rep until you can't do a full rep, and then you carry on until you can't move your arm at all. So what's happening at the end there? You're doing lengthened partials. It's nothing new, really. The X3 system of working out has been like that for at least 6 years. So it's not really a fad, but I think what it is just another way of selling something. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just a different name for the same thing that we've all been doing, and you will get some benefits. I mean, that part of my bicep, it doesn't look particularly good at the moment, but there you go. That part of my bicep did get a bit more of a ridge when I started doing the X3 and doing partial reps. Simple as that. Because you are stressing very near the tendon. There's your downside. You could get an injury. So anyway, that's my take. But I do think it's not so much a fad. It's just a new name for an old exercise thing to do, personally. Rich?
Yeah, I agree. Spot on. I'm just conscious of the time and a couple of the other questions in there that I wanted to get to. There's Yeah, perfect. Look, red meat is not damaging to the kidneys. It's a massive, one of the biggest lies that we've ever been told. Stephen mentioned earlier, one of his clients has reversed kidney problems through eating red meat. Red meat isn't the problem. Processed foods can be, processed meats can be. They contain lots of nasties, anti-nutrients, so on and so forth. Spinach oxalates, detrimental to the kidney, most definitely. And there are many other compounds that contain oxalates. So look, red meat heals the kidneys. It heals the body. Red meat should not be demonized. It does not cause kidney problems, and it does not cause cancer. And we've shown this in previous talks, and maybe it's something we can get into on the next channel, which we go in live in 5 minutes, which rhymes with apple crumble. But there was something that I wanted to get into. I don't know if 5 minutes is going to be long enough, but it was to do with fiber. But I'm conscious that we've got other questions, so maybe we'll roll that fiber question over to the other channel at 8, and see if we can get through some of these first, shall we?
Yeah, the kidney one is a bit of a bugbear of mine because I have got a lot of success stories of people reversing kidney problems with carnivore. And so much so, I've got a standard comment, which has got all the studies about being red meat being protective of the kidneys, and absolutely randomized clinical trials showing the intervention of red meat being protective and returning function to kidneys. Fact. So, there are no facts about red meat damaging your kidneys, but there's certainly facts about it being protective. And also, there are definitely people reversing kidney problems with red meat. Definite. 100%. Right. This might be one of the questions you wanted to talk about then. Are there any elite level endurance athletes that are performing well on a ketogenic diet? Why is the industry standard still the idea of constant carb loading? Mainly because they're idiots. I mean, if you look at the Paris Olympics, that should know better. Seriously, why are they doing leaf over beef? It's ridiculous. They're idiots. Sorry to be blunt, not you asking the question, but anyone that does not think eating this way is going to help them, or eating red meat is detrimental and bad for the environment, just doesn't know what they're talking about. But anyway, go on, Rick. Sorry, do a proper answer.
Yeah, look, spot on. It's this. It's money. The body needs between 5 to 20 grams of carbohydrates per hour, even at high intensity, which it is capable of making through gluconeogenesis. Now, any excess that you needed is this much, which means that a sugar company can't sell you a product that contains 5 grams of carbohydrate, because you could just get that from anything. So instead, they sell you 100-gram super duper glucose shot, or 120, so on and so forth. We don't need it. It's as simple as that. But when you train zone 2, what are you doing? What zone 2 is endurance work. You're teaching your body to burn fat for fuel. And then you'll speak to people who will carb load before their zone 2 work. And you think, you're putting carbohydrate in to teach your body to burn fat for fuel. Absolutely counterintuitive, and it makes no sense at all. There are elite athletes. Dave Scott, 7 times or 8 times Kona champion. I know this is going back a long time. He was predominantly ketogenic. There are lots of athletes who I've mentioned in other talks who have implemented low-carb ketogenic lifestyles. I work with an incredible cyclist who I wanted to sponsor but couldn't, because he needs to remain anonymous in regards to his diet, because if he was open about being ketogenic, he would be kicked off the team. They cannot be promoting a lifestyle that the sponsors are promoting the opposite. So if they are sponsored by sugar companies, then they cannot be said to do the opposite. Louise Burke, who is known for being detrimental towards low-carb ketogenic lifestyles, has published numerous studies, all of which have been done on ketogenic athletes who are only 3 weeks or less into adapting. And as you know from speaking with Steve and I, this takes an awful long time. 3 weeks isn't enough. They weren't fed adequate electrolytes, which, as you know, insulin drops. The electrolytes are released from the body, so electrolyte supplementation is essential, especially in the early stages. And protein, the amino acid or protein consumption wasn't high enough. Study after study has shown that an adapted ketogenic athlete will beat their counterpart in every metric that has been tested. And this has been shown at muscle biopsy level. And again, this is in one of the YouTube podcasts that I've done that is available on my channel. I've also presented that with Anthony Chafee. I think that's had incredible views on his channel. When we look at the evidence and the science, it outperforms the carb athlete on every metric in regards to their counterpart. With only a minute to go, we probably haven't got time to get into the nitty gritty with that. But yes, they do exist, and they can't basically tell people because they'd be kicked off the team, unfortunately.
Simple as that. It's all about money.
Dum, dum,
Right.
diddy, dum,
So,
dum.
so now we're going to be on Apple Crumble from 8 p.m. So we have to leave this wonderful platform, and hopefully we'll see you all over there. Give us a couple of minutes to run from one studio to the other and switch on the transmitter. So anyway, we'll see you very, very shortly. Thanks for watching here on YouTube.
Thank you all.